There's some very pervasive themes right now that enterprises across industry are facing as it relates to unlocking their workforce. First is just resilience in a world where change is a constant. That resilience, adaptability is a very major focus area for organizations that are partnering with us to help transform their workforce. The second big theme is around AI readiness. No longer do you have to be in an IT function or in a tech-focused company to care about AI. There's a lot of companies that are seeking our support and partnership in helping ready their workforces of all levels, from senior leadership to their individual contributor workforces, for what's to change with AI.
It's wild to see the shifts in AI in the past few months. I can only imagine that a lot of your clients' employees and their workforces are facing some fears and hesitations around this new technology, when really what we need to be doing is embracing it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Experts of Experience. I'm your host, Lauren Wood. Today, I am joined by Sarah Parker, the Senior Vice President of Customer Success at BetterUp. Today, we are going to explore how she's driving human transformation at scale and really reshaping customer success for the modern workforce. Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Lauren.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. So it's really interesting to have you on the show. I've been following BetterUp for many years as you've been growing rapidly. I myself am a leadership coach, so it's been really interesting for me to see how BetterUp has positioned themselves as really supporting organizational transformation on that one-to-one level between a coach and an employee. When it comes to organizational performance, what are the problems that your clients are facing, and how are you helping them to overcome them?
Yeah, I'd say there's some very pervasive themes right now that enterprises across industry are facing as it relates to kind of unlocking their workforce, performance and potential to drive business performance. So I'd say first is just resilience in a world where change is a constant. So that resilience, adaptability is a very major focus area for organizations that are partnering with us to help transform their workforce. The second big theme we're seeing is around AI readiness. So no longer do you just have to be in an IT function or in a tech-focused company to care about AI. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous now. And so there's a lot of companies that are kind of seeking our support and partnership in helping kind of ready their workforces of all levels, from senior leadership to their individual contributor workforces, for what's to change with AI. Something we like to call, how do you go from being a passenger of AI and just waiting for it to happen to you, to being a pilot and kind of chartering yours and your function's destiny with it?
Completely. It's something I think about a lot. I mean, it's wild to see the shifts in AI in the past few months, even. I feel like something that we thought was like coming conceptually is now here, and our work is going to change drastically. And I can only imagine that a lot of your clients' employees and their workforces are facing some fears and hesitations around this new technology, when really what we need to be doing is embracing it. I'm curious to know a little bit more of how you're helping your clients really adapt to this new AI world.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of it through the lens of kind of my team, where we come in and help them adopt and extract value from the solutions we've sold them. I'd say the first way we help them is help them target the right populations that could benefit this the most. So, for example, if organizations trying to solve for AI readiness as it relates to their supply chain operations, we will help them do the diagnostic of who's the critical talent to unlock first within your supply chain division that will then have a cascading impact on the largest number of people possible. So we will, one, help them, diagnose and isolate on a starting critical population. Then we're there to help make sure that we're seeing enough engagement with the coaching, like in qualitative engagement with the coaching, that are going to yield them the output they want, which is a shifted mindset in how they're approaching AI in the workplace. My team has a ton of data our customers have a ton of data. We're there to help them serve almost as like a translation layer. How do you harness the data that leveraging a platform like BetterUp offers you so you can pace where your people are and therefore prescribe where you need them to go? So I would say we are definitely acting as like data translators, helping them elevate the narrative of what the data is telling them around how their organization or critical talent is progressing, as well as what might be other new different areas or mindsets that we need to unlock with them based on what we're learning in aggregate through their coaching journeys with us thus far.
Interesting. So you're really taking a consultative approach with your clients to help them approach what you are offering them in terms of this coaching support, but doing so in a way that is very strategic and also data-driven.
Yes, it's absolutely a consultative approach. Must be data-driven. We are science-founded. The data is the true unlock here. And then, I found, because we work with a lot of, traditionally, we've worked primarily within the HR function, learning and development type sub-functions and groups. Where I'm pushing my team and where I think the market's going is it's not enough to just study the data in your people through the lens of talent, but incorporating business context in performance indicators as well as evidence that talent or workforce transformation is actually happening. So I would say that's another level of translation and other types of data sets that we're looking at beyond just the data around who's getting a coach, but being able to reconcile or extrapolate that to the business performance indicators and how the two correlate.
Wow, that's so interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? So like what kinds of data are you using? And I specifically want to understand how you're tracking who's being coached to the performance metrics that the business cares about, because I think that's such an interesting thing. And I think a lot of leaders think about like, what's the ROI of investing in my employees' abilities to, and there's so many different things that coaches can tackle or you can work with a coach, but I think it's difficult to track that ROI. So tell me a little bit more about how you're doing that.
Yeah, I can give you a really, I think, tangible example. So, can't name the customer, but they're a large tech company that is probably one of the more legacy names in the market. And the competitive landscape for them has really dialed up in the last few years. And, they came to us of wanting to instill more competitive mindsets within their particularly first and second line sales leadership divisions or roles, I should say. And so as we're, preparing and kind of designing the optimal coaching solution for that population, we're also designing what are the kind of performance indicators, both talent-wise and business-wise for them. So we're able to connect into this customer's or integrate with this customer's CRM, Salesforce, let's call it, to actually see based on how they're progressing through the coaching and as evidence of their mindset shifting towards more competitive, how is that translating to pipeline conversion rates, quota attainment? And then we're able to do the studies with the customer of like A/B testing. How did the teams fare under leaders who did undergo the coaching versus did not? So that we can actually prove, like there's proof points, not just people telling us like NPS, like, oh yeah, everybody loves coaching. It's hard not to. But where it really kind of differentiates and you truly get validation of the impact is, did the talent transformation unlock business transformation and outcomes? And, we were only able to prove that because we were able to work with this particular customer and get actual sales performance data to draw that correlation.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And I think that's something that I can, just as you're speaking, I'm like, this is the value proposition of working with someone like BetterUp versus someone like me who's just a lonely old coach who doesn't have all the data per se. So it's really interesting to see how you're tying all that together.
For sure. That's how I would kind of reframe it as the difference from just going with the coaching solution or offering, of which there's many great options out there, versus a platform. And the platform allows for integration into your operating and tech stack. It allows for much richer data insights. And that's why we see organizations versus individuals and enterprises are a lot more keen on looking for a platform partner. You know, if I would say if the outcome they're looking for is true workforce and ultimately business transformation, which is not what everyone's looking for, but
yeah, for sure. So it's interesting as I've been thinking about your business model, you're very much a B2B2C type of company where you have your enterprise clients, but then you also have to, I'm assuming, engage the employees who are being coached. And not everybody wants to be coached, I would assume. And there's probably some work that you need to do in order to really get that population on board and acting in the way that you need them to act to create a successful project. Firstly, tell me if that's a true assumption, because I am making an assumption here. And then I'd love to understand how you approach it.
Yeah, no, it's a very true assumption. Like the word customer here can mean many different things. So for us, our primary customers are one we call our partners. So those are like the enterprise, that's the buyer, it's the organization. And us supporting the partner means they're getting help implementing, they're getting help with the data and insights of their coached populations, and we're helping them make decisions of where to go and hunt next. Then there's the second part of our customer equation, and that is the member. That is the end user who's ultimately getting coached or coaching solutions through our platform. And I'd say we have a lot of focus, my team, on the member experience, because essentially you roll up the member experience and that naturally points to kind of the experience of your partner and enterprise. If the members are not engaged, actively using and finding value in the solution, then the partner will never reach their kind of value. So what ROI? I would say there's a lot that we've been doing to drive member engagement. There's obviously a lot of operational and marketing-like approaches to engage a population from activation and keeping them on. But we've made a lot of investments in what I would call product-led growth. So how are we constantly innovating within the product experience to drive better engagement with our end users, our members? And AI plays a very big role there. We use AI to enhance both the member experience, making it easier, more intuitive, it helps them reinforce asynchronously. So outside of being with your human coach, there's a lot of AI prompted reinforcement of what you talked about. So it stays front of mind and keeps you wanting to come back for more. We also, I would say, uplift or enrich our human coaches with AI for them to deliver an even greater experience for members, which we know has a very direct correlation to them wanting to come back and keep engaging with our platform. So yeah, I think a ton of tactics towards driving member engagement, your traditional marketing type nudges and all that in events and fun, the lighter type experiences. But I found that product-led kind of innovation, especially with AI, has been particularly influential for us for driving up member engagement, especially as we're scaling as an organization. It's one thing to do it with 200 customers. It's another thing to do it with 1,000 or more.
Completely. I mean, I have led customer success teams in B2B2C environments similar to what you're discussing right now, really having AI. And it is very challenging to come up with different ways of targeting a group that you can't necessarily connect to. I mean, you can send them an email, but I've always struggled to find those things that we can really do that are going to engage that user other than making changes to the product. And so now that we can be a little bit smarter about where we're putting those product efforts, I think it's really exciting to see some of the changes that are coming.
Yeah.
Are there any examples of something that you have implemented that you found a lot of success with in terms of engaging that group?
Yeah, I would say early warning systems. So we can generate a lot, because we're a platform, we can generate a lot of data around how the member is experiencing and navigating the platform without them telling us. So I
Yeah.
think in the traditional days, you're waiting for the negative NPS or CSAT survey or an angry customer email to let you know there's a problem. There's a lot that we can do to detect problems before they arise. So
Yeah.
that's a big focus of my team, where we've been looking to institute like early warning systems that help us flag, I would say, irregular use of the product or lagging or stagnated use of sessions. We have statistical data that we know, like, when do you have the member? Like once they're on that
Yeah.
third session, they're locked in. So we know the moments that matter and the particular milestones we need to get an end user to know that we've got them on a set path forward for us at an engagement level that we know will yield them their own personal individual outcomes that they're hoping to get from coaching, as well as the organizational outcomes that the partner or enterprise level is looking for. So now that if we have the data to tell us where they are in the journey, we have the statistically proven milestones that we know we need to get them to. Now it's just a matter of just pacing and detecting when they're on or off track from that pathway. And we've instituted data alerts that meet our account teams in the flow of their work. So we're a Slack house. You will get nudges in your Slack. You'll get an email digest. We've got dashboards galore. So I think it's not just about having a lot of data, but how you set it up and operationalize it in a smart way to prompt the right actions or decisions by your frontline teams to go intervene proactively. So I'd say we've done the work we've done around the early warning system that allows for more preventative maintenance or kind of early risk interventions with our customers has been I'd say a great example of how we're using data to keep our ultimate end user kind of population well engaged.
Yeah, it actually leads me to another question that I had for you is how are you approaching customer success at scale? Because from the sounds of it, you have a very high touch, you're supporting your enterprise clients in a very high touch way, but then you also have this other population that you have to consistently be supporting and nudging through the journey. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, you just gave us a taste of it, but if we could even pull back for a moment to understand what has your strategy been as you look to really scale up customer success efforts at BetterUp?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very timely question because we're like in the thick of that journey right now.
Amazing.
I would say to date, the customer success was synonymous with a high touch CSM. Everyone thought customer success meant I had a named dedicated CSM supporting my account and customers.
And you can pick up the phone and you can call that person whenever you need to, and they're always available.
Yeah. And that's great when you're like 100 million, even 250 million ARR is like, it's tough to stay like that. So we are very much graduating to, I think, a much more evolved engagement model where customer success is not just people, it's programming and it's data-led it's data-formed programming that where you could have digital or automated agents do a lot of the prompting and outreach and nudges that humans previously did. But I would say our recipe for kind of how we're starting to scale customer success, and that's scale it globally. It's scaling it in terms of our customer demographics are changing. Not only are we growing in logo count, but the maturity and pervasiveness of BetterUp in our existing customers is greatly expanding. We are moving customers from a single point solution to multi-product platform type experiences. So scale means 10 things for us. So a couple like our ingredients. One is standardization. I think, and you hear a lot of this about earlier stage companies like ourselves, is that when you're first in growth mode, it's forget the standards. We just got to make our customers successful by any cost. But now we're at a point where we need to start standardizing process. Yeah. And standardization is the precedent for automation. Once you have more standard process and workflow, it becomes much easier to allow for automation to augment the human aspects of customer success, which are our CSMs. We have implementation experts. We have technical integration experts. So there remains a big human component, but we want to augment those humans with automation, data at the ready in the flow of work to make them productive and expand the span of how many customers they can cover and interact and successfully manage. I think there is definitely a place where we could almost get to a fully digitized experience for select
Hmm.
segments of customers, more thinking
Mm-hmm.
through like the SMB mid-market type segments. So that's an area where we're looking for much more of a end-to-end digital type customer success experience. But yeah, I think where we're at right now, it's how do we start standardizing workflow so we have the foundation for doing more automation.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of data, but again, like how do we then operationalize said data in alerts and automated triggers based on what the
Mm-hmm.
data is telling us that
Mm-hmm.
will act on behalf of a would-be human in the customer success organization.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the journey we're on. We're definitely in the earlier parts of
Yeah.
it, but because we have such a good bedrock of data, I find that this will go probably a lot faster than it would have or it has been in my kind of previous customer success roles.
Completely. Where you're kind of putting your finger in there and being like, we know this, we can intuit that this is the way that things happen or what's happening for our customers, but we might not necessarily be able to say at this point this happens and have a lot
Yes.
of data that we can kind of say, okay,
Yeah,
definitively, this is the best way to do it or the right way to go.
exactly.
I really like what you're sharing about standardization to automation. And I feel that a lot of companies delay that standardization effort because you're testing and learning and playing and you have some big clients that you're willing to do anything for. But eventually you get to this place where that's no longer sustainable and you have to go through that, in my experience, painstaking effort of standardizing everything that you do into very clear offerings that have clear playbooks and all of that. So
Totally.
I
Yeah.
my heart goes out to you and knowing what
It
you're
is. Yeah,
in the middle of at the moment. And it's also a fun thing because you can see, okay, now we can just repeat this. Now we can see clearly what are
totally.
those repeatable actions that
Yeah,
we
and
can
there's a
help our
huge
team to do.
yeah, and I believe standardization isn't just self-serving for the vendor or for the enterprise
Totally.
software company.
Yeah.
It's huge for the customer.
Hmm.
Consistency of service is such a critical lever in overall like customer experience. Trust me, I
Hmm.
read about it all the time in my service. So I find that standardization is also just deeply in service of the customer.
Yeah.
And you'll always have the special snowflake. You'll always have your top 10% of customers driving like 50% of your revenues. That's just
Hmm.
such a normal dynamic. And we will never use standardization as a crutch to deliver under what we need to for those types of customers.
Hmm.
But 80% of my customers do need a more standard approach. And this more standard
Yeah.
approach means they're going to get more support from us and more
Hmm.
touch from us than they do today. So
Totally.
so outside of being a great capacity lever for me in terms of workforce planning and how I do
Totally.
more without like completely exploding my cost basis. I really do recognize the customer experiential factor as being
Hmm.
very positively impacted through
Hmm.
more standard workflow and experience with us.
Completely. It enables us to support our customers faster. It's clearer. It's more consistent, as you share. Those are things that
Yep.
customers want. And that's why that standardization process is such an important part of customer experience. And it's something that just in my own consulting work, I find sometimes I feel like when I'm saying we really need to standardize everything here so that we can provide that consistency, I'm like, they're like, why are we talking about that in the conversation of customer experience? But
Yeah.
I believe it to be really core to enabling a team to provide a great customer experience that hits on all those
Absolutely.
points you mentioned. You are a business leader with vision. You've seen the future as an AI enterprise thriving with Salesforce's Agent Force. Getting there? It's a little fuzzier. Don't worry. Salesforce CTOs are here to work with you side by side and turn your Agent Force vision into a reality. We're talking expert guidance and implementation support from the best of the best. To learn more about Salesforce CTOs, visit sfdc.co/professional services. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about AI. It sounds like this is something that BetterUp's really invested in, both in terms of what you are providing to your customers, as well as how you're supporting your team. And When it comes to really like utilizing AI to drive your customer success efforts, can you tell us a little bit more about what that's been like to incorporate it into your flows?
I'd say in internal application is, again, I'm going to be a broken record, but I feel very lucky and privileged to have as much data on our customers as we do here. We have great telemetry. We have, even when the company was much smaller, really rigorous means of tracking and documenting the customer experience end to end. It's not enough to just have great data, but how do you digest that data and then start to drive correlation of how the customer's using, how do you drive correlation between how the customer's using the platform to actual commercial outcomes for us? So a commercial outcome could be propensity to renew, propensity to churn or contract, propensity to expand. We have a great team of data scientists. We give them our currency, our data, and they're applying AI to help us drive real predictive insights around the commercial levers that we need to pull as an organization. So I think using AI to help us predict propensity for growth or contraction on an account helps not just my post-sales customer success teams, but quite frankly, our sales organization get into the proper posture. Are we on the defensive? Are we on the offensive for this customer? Or are we coasting for a bit? So I think that helps us, especially with early stage companies where you're not like, you don't have thousands of people, like you can be really smart about how you prioritize and focus your time and energy on accounts.
It is essential that you are able to do that.
Yes, very much so. I would be remiss if I didn't mention just how leveraging the publicly available LLMs like ChatGPT, every single member of my organization, especially my leaders, are using it at least daily. So we are just hacking our way to more efficient ways of not just servicing our customer, but knowing our customer. So one thing about, we're selling workforce transformation software. To be a good CSM or good post-sale partner, it's not enough to just know what they bought and know your product really well. You have to understand the context of that customer's business and their industry to best guide them to apply your product in the best possible way. So we're using ChatGPT in many ways to get really smart, really fast on the business context and industry context of our customers. So I think it's also outside of unlocking like capacity for our CSMs. I think it's unlocking a level of capability more specifically around business acumen that I'm really excited about. I'm a big fan of consultative CS, and that's exactly where I see us heading with more of this AI kind of empowered tooling.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I think go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say on that point about really understanding your customer. It's just so incredibly important for us to be able to develop a relationship and for our customers to see that we understand them. If they get that we get them and we can show them that we get them, that creates the space for us to build trust with them, for them to allow us to give them advice and take on that consultative role. If they don't feel like we know what's going on in their business, our advice lands on deaf ears because they don't believe that we actually know what we're talking about. So I love that use case of using AI to really help educate your teams quickly and efficiently on these industries, on these customers. I haven't heard that one before, and I'm definitely putting that in my toolkit 100%. That's great.
Yeah, no, it's helpful. And I think, it builds trust. Like your closest friends are the people that are most known to you. So why would that be any different with your closest customers? And
completely
in a world where there's unlimited points of view on where AI can completely do a large part of our jobs. And absolutely, I think with the pace at where things are heading, customer success is going to look very different in a short window of years. Where I don't see it replacing is the trust building aspect and, the nuances of building deep relationships, trust, and the unique insights that unlock through that. Those
Oh,
are
completely.
those have to be driven by a human. I think the difference it's going to be is that human is going to be empowered and kind of uplifted through AI. And I think the people that will perform best, and that goes for any frontline function, customer facing, not just customer success managers, but sellers, account executives, etc. Those that know how to harness AI to know their customer better, faster, and anticipate their needs those will be our winningest frontline kind of personas of the future. So.
Oh, completely. I'm curious to know a little bit more about how you think customer success is going to change and what skills are really required for those CSMs to be successful in a new age.
I think we're just going to get really, really smart, really, really fast on our customers. So the like the early warning system I was talking about, still was pretty manual for us to put together or to help us identify the data, like train models so we understand statistically what are the milestones they need to hit for us to have a positive commercial outcome, and then set triggers of when they're off track with that. I think those
and like
models
what things can we do that actually improve it when those triggers happen,
I just think we're just going to see a dramatic increase in the speed of which we're going to know our customer base, install base very intimately, where we're going to be able to predict issues and intervene. I think where the organization is going is we're going to actually become more revenue focused than retention focused. I think a lot of the retention and defensive and risk management strategies we do today can be largely automated if you have the right data set and right AI engines, you can automate a lot of that work. So then you're focused more on like solutioning. How do I fix it? Or how do I execute said solution? So we'll be less monitoring. So if I were to synthesize, I'd say a lot less monitoring and more active problem solving and solution execution. And I think a lot of the freed up capacity may be going more towards revenue generating versus revenue retaining efforts. I think, well, let me think some more. I think what's going to get probably disrupted the most is like SMB and emerging enterprise, like your kind of lower engagement model type populations for customer success is going to move to a fully digitized experience. And I think we're going to expand in kind of the white glove concierge level customer success for your top tranche of customers. So I think AI will just make that concierge white level support just that much greater.
Yeah.
I don't see a ton of human disruption there. I just think a lot more efficiency, probably.
Completely.
And then probably we can scale delightful moments that are today unique and sparse. I think we'll be able to deliver delight at scale in a way that we can't today, just mainly due to resource scarcity.
Completely.
So yeah, I don't know if I were to, I think where CS is going, powered by AI, it just flips the resourcing model on its head. It makes us the data around our customer, where they are, where they're heading, predictive wise. It'll become ubiquitous versus a differentiator of high performing CS teams. It's just going to be table stakes.
Yeah, we're very aligned in how we are seeing customer success change. I think there's so much opportunity for things to be automated for a lot of the deep analytical work that we do to try to understand trends in our customer base. Like that's going to be taken off of our plate. It'll be much easier to automate outreach and really like at scale tailor what we are doing to our customers' needs. But I think the area, and you shared this, where skills will be needed is really in those human to human relationships. When we think about the high touch versions of customer success, what that is really going to need is the ability to build relationships with customers expertly. And we can use AI, as you had shared, to help us understand our customers. But AI is not going to help us listen. AI is not going to help us empathize. We're going to need to really turn those skills on, because that's going to be the differentiator, in my opinion.
I would maybe challenge the point of it won't help us listen. I think it's already helping us listen and digest information faster, because it can listen to your customer calls, give you the takeaways. Like there's something like that, but what it doesn't replace is, you're right. I think the EQ aspects of kind of client facing roles are going to be under greater scrutiny or expectation, right?
Completely.
Because you're not doing all the other operating work.
Yeah. And what I mean by listening too, sorry, just let me correct myself. Yeah. When I mean listening, I mean like actively listening to someone's verbal and nonverbal cues, which is something that AI isn't going to be able to help us with, at least yet. Yes, they are listening for sure. And they are able to hear, oh, someone's getting a little angrier or whatnot. But I do think that there is this, like when you're in the room with someone and you can feel their energy, I think that that's something that I assume AI won't be able to figure out. But hey, who knows? It's changing real fast.
Yeah. No, so I agree. I completely agree. I think there's also, with like the amount of work that comes off of someone in customer success's plate with all the AI efficiencies and productivity wins to gain, there's then more onus for us to have a point of view. We're no longer just like execution horses for driving adoption and engagement and value and customer sentiment, right? Like a lot of that busy work goes away. So now it's like, so what is your unique value proposition? Deep customer empathy, because of your very nuanced and contextualized understanding of customer problems, needs, and how they're using a solution today. There's no one better than you to have a very formulated point of view of what the future of the partnership should look like. So that's where I do see us going to be more in support of revenue generation versus just retention. And I think and this is more just a broader philosophy I have that's not really unique to customer success or even enterprise SaaS. I mean, we're just going to see across all facets of our life, like AI-powered digitization is just going to replace a lot of what was previously human-delivered operating labor, to the point where there's going to be such a market, like a premium market for like true human, like crafted service and capabilities. And so I think that just reinforces your point that like, there's just going to be so much more higher stakes for human to human kind of delivered services and experience than there is today. And it's honestly not something I've thought about a lot in the scope of my own role, but you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, just as we're talking about this, and I think something we speak about a lot is scaled customer success. Like, how are we kind of making a customer success function operate so that we don't need to have that one-to-one, but it can really be a one-to-many execution of like services and support for in that post-sale environment. And just as we're talking about this, it's like, yes, I mean, I'm like a scale super nerd. If we can make things more efficient, we can like take away repeatable processes that don't actually need to happen, and we can just, have that be taken care of by technology, like great. But then there's this opportunity for surprise and delight in the human to human interactions, and I just think it's something, as we're talking about this, I'm just thinking about how can customer success leaders who have really gotten to that automated, scalable system then use the human-to-human interactions to really go above and beyond with their customers in unique moments or situations. And I don't know what the answer to that is. It's just something I'm pondering, because I feel like that is where there's going to be differentiation.
Yeah, absolutely. Scaled CS has been around like scaling support and engagement. Now we're going to how do we scale delight? I think that's how I'm reflecting on what you're sharing.
Completely. I love that. When you're using Salesforce to tackle your company's most important goals, failure is simply not an option. That's why their most highly skilled advisors, Salesforce CTOs, are available to help you succeed with expert guidance and implementation support at every step of the way. Learn more about Salesforce CTOs at sfdc.co. /professional services. Well, Sarah, I have two last questions for you that we ask all of our guests. The first is, I'd love to hear about a recent experience that you had with a brand that left you impressed. Tell us about that experience.
I'm going to give it to a restaurant in my area. I think I am.
That's great.
So I'll give a little context, but like
Sure.
I spent a large part of my life in New York City, and you can eat at a different restaurant every day of your life and not repeat anything. So it's easy to be unknown as a customer in your interactions there. And 3 years ago, I moved to the suburbs, and so over these years, we've kind of started to land on our go-to spots. And for me, a customer experience like data point that's relevant, that I look for in my personal life and decisions of where I shop and buy is to feel like I'm known. And I think, walking to a restaurant where they know me, they know my son, they know my husband, they're asking me about for updates since our last interaction. I don't know. I'm very simple. I want to feel known beyond, yes, I'm going to pay you. Yes, I'm going to tip you. But I find that. So it's just very fundamental. And I take this approach to my kind of CS hat that I wear, but like, you can't underestimate the power of knowing your customer and knowing the whole them, not just how they're using their platform, but understand their business, the context of this business cycle that they may be in or industry cycle. Knowing them as a full person in terms of what's going on in their life outside of work. That's something that my team does such a phenomenal job at here. So I, when I think about vendors or places I frequent where I feel truly known, like for me, that is the best feeling as a customer.
Yeah. I love that you're saying that. The relationship that you have with the business, the relationship that you have with the humans inside of the business that you are a patron of goes so far for your opinion of that business. And that's why I think as we are talking about the human aspects of customer success and where those opportunities are to really create a relationship and connection with our customer, we are all human and we want to feel like we are seen, known, and understood. And restaurants are great examples of great customer experience. Whenever I'm going to a great restaurant, I'm looking at like, what do they do? How can we then apply this into our SaaS businesses? Because restaurants know how to make you feel so special, even though you are one of hundreds every night. Right. Some restaurants, not all, but the good ones.
Yeah. For sure.
So then my last question for you is, what is one piece of advice that every customer experience leader should hear?
Know the business of your customers. So I think we naturally fall into the habit of just learning ourselves on the aspects of the customer's business that they're actively telling us about versus getting a fuller, more comprehensive understanding. And I don't know, it served my teams and I super well in my career in customer success to truly spend the time investing in understanding the customer's business and industry, how they make money, what are their competitive and pressures they're under, has just equipped us to be so much more of an effective consultant in how they leverage and extract value from our platform or solution than without that information. I'll even give the example of, I started my career at GE, General Electric, and we were like a 330,000 person company, 150 billion market cap. I knew like 1,000th of GE. My aperture working inside the company was just so small.
Yeah.
I would use my vendors, my software vendors who were selling to many other parts of GE. I used them to inform me what was going on around my company. They were like my intel and they were third parties. So that was so impressional on me in the early part of my career of like how much the vendors through their third party objective lens and their much more kind of pervasive network across my company than I would ever have. And how much of value that was to me. I'm like, I want to do that for my customers going forward. So
completely.
Yeah, I would say that's my advice for any customer experience leader there, not just what they model, but what they expect of their teams. That business acumen, understanding the business of your customers is just so critical.
Completely. And like we had said earlier, that's what allows you to really take that consultative approach and add real value. I think understanding what your customers care about, like what are their measurements of success? It's so easy for us to say like, well, we're measuring NPS and we're measuring our retention and we're measuring our NRR. So that's what we're going to drive. But your customer doesn't care about those metrics at all.
Right.
So if we're not helping them achieve their metrics, are they going to stay with us when it comes time to renew?
Yeah. It's such a lever for trust, credibility, and you're helping your customer even think about what their next layer is going to ask about the money they're spending with us too. So
exactly. Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on the show. It's been wonderful to have you. And I'm sure we'll chat soon. Have a wonderful day.
Hope we do. Take care.